MSW Media.
News with swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Monday, November 17th, 2025. Today, Epstein survivors confirmed that Trump killed a Biden-era investigation into the Epstein files. The Comey case is on thin ice, thinner than before, as a judge demands missing grand jury tapes. Mike Flynn is in talks with Trump's DOJ for a $50 million settlement as the regime continues to loot the Treasury. The Trump administration is killing Biden's cash payments for delayed and canceled flights. Ghislaine Maxwell emailed her lawyer from prison about a commutation. Indiana is ignoring pressure from Trump and refusing to redraw their maps. The Trump administration is lifting some tariffs because of high prices, and a judge indefinitely bars Trump from fining University of California over alleged discrimination. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Dana Goldberg.
Hello, happy Monday, my traveling friend.
Oh my goodness, I am exhausted, but I do have to say the two shows in Chicago, my God, the Daily Beans Leguminati showed up, Allison. I think the opener, said something about the Daily Beans and I was like, where's the Leguminati? 3/4 of the room lit up and applause. People flew in from Dallas, Fort Worth, Detroit, Minnesota for the show in Chicago. My fan base was incredible. It was incredible. You all were wonderful. It was joyful. I'm so glad I added the second show. Everyone in the second show was so appreciative, and it just filled my cup. So thank you, everyone, for coming to Chicago. As we continue to book tour dates, I'll make sure that you know about them first, because it sure was nice having that energy in the room. So thank you for bringing your kids. Everyone brought their kids, and then there was some gay people that brought their parents. It was awesome.
It's a family thing.
Yeah.
Man, I miss live comedy. I miss performing. I miss doing live comedy. I miss it all. But it's like, I remember every time I'd get ready to do shows, there was one point where I was doing like 20 shows a month and I'd be like, I don't want to do this show tonight. And then I would get there and I would just light up and I would be like, I love it. I'm never going to stop.
Totally know the feeling.
Yeah. Just incredible. Thanks to all of the Beans fam that went out and saw Dana. I told you she's funny. All right. Later in the show, we're going to talk to Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News. He and I are going to discuss the Comey case, plus the revival of 2 state cases against 2020 fraudulent electors. There's also a new episode of Unjustified out. It came out yesterday, where Andy McCabe confirms he's gotten a subpoena from Trump's Department of Justice. And there's a new Breakdown, another show that I do over on the Midas Touch Network, where I connect all the dots about what we're going to tell you about the killed Biden-era Epstein investigation. Dana, he came in January, killed the investigation, stole the files, and then it covered everything up. It's just
unbelievable,
bonkers that the mainstream media isn't like all over this. Also, E. Jean Carroll has a must-listen interview on the Feminist Buzzkills podcast. That's an MSW Media podcast, and we have a powerful clip of how she used fashion as a tool in bringing Trump to justice. Let's listen.
The book has this through line of fashion and commentary and using clothes as style, using clothes as armor, using clothes as a strategy.
Yeah.
I wish you would talk a little bit about why that was so important to have in the through line throughout.
And the horrible truth is, for the last 5,000 years, if a woman accuses a powerful man, the whole trial becomes about what she looks like.
Yeah.
And what she looks like is the basic question, is she fuckable?
Yes.
Yeah. The attack happened in the spring of 96. I had the Ask Eugene show at the time, and we did exactly that hair and exactly that makeup. And I wore clothes, actually, I had in my closet in 1996. So that was the trick we used so that the juror could see, okay, they just got an echo of the younger woman. I made sure I wrote about what every fucking person in the courtroom was wearing.
Absolutely. Right.
Don't ask me what I'm wearing. Here's what you wore. Here's what you wore. Here's what the judge wore. Here's what Tacopina wore. Clothes are about every woman who's listening to this podcast knows.
Yeah.
It is our armor. It is our secret. It's where we get our confidence and how we feel good about ourselves. The world is visual.
In the wake of the Epstein email drop, and horrible people are out here trying to downplay assault victims, saying 15-year-olds are different than 5-year-olds. This interview really lays out what an SA victim and SA survivors go through when they come forward. It's really a great episode, so give it a listen.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, time for some quick hits.
And to make a long story short, too late.
Dana, there are 139 minutes missing from the Department of Justice grand jury tapes in the Comey case.
That feels significant, Alice.
It's funny because some folks were reporting the final minutes are missing. Yeah, the final 139 minutes. Lindsay Halligan says that's from when the grand jury was deliberating, but grand juries only deliberate for a few minutes. But the judge pointed out she only presented the case once, but she signed 2 different indictment documents. The first one was a no bill. They wouldn't indict. The second one was a true bill, and it had a count missing from it. But Adam Klasfeld and I are going to discuss that later in the show, along with the revival I was talking about of the 2020 fraudulent elector cases in Nevada and Fulton County, Georgia.
Fantastic. And this is from Bloomberg. The Justice Department has been discussing settlements with 2 former officials from Donald Trump's first term who, like the president, claim that they've been owed major payouts from the U.S. government as victims of politically motivated actions.
Oh.
Yeah, this one's infuriating. The administration has been in talks since at least late summer to resolve lawsuits brought by Trump's first national security advisor. That's Michael Flynn, and former senior White House lawyer Stefan Passatino, according to court filings. Now, Flynn, that asshole, is seeking $50 million for what he alleges was a wrongful prosecution, while Passatino says White House committee probing the 2020 election harmed his reputation by leaking private information.
You harmed your own reputation.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it. I'll never forget when the judge looked at the lawyers that were prosecuting Mike Flynn and said, "Did you think about charging him with treason? Did you think about it?" Anybody who was listening to the Mueller, She Wrote kitchen table days will remember that. Also, from WISH in Indianapolis, Indiana Senate President Pro Tem Roderick Bray announced Friday afternoon the Senate will not move forward with redrawing the state's congressional maps mid-cycle because, Dana, they can't get the votes.
I love saying this. This is now 2 what they would consider red states that are like, we don't have the votes.
Yep.
Ha ha ha. Okay. This is from the Times. The Trump administration is killing a Biden-era proposal that would have required airlines to pay passengers up to $775 in cash for significant travel disruptions within carriers' control. Meaning if they messed up, and I think it was a 3-hour delay, then you were supposed to get some money back. The Transportation Department is officially withdrawing the cash compensation rule, which was introduced about a year ago by the Biden administration. In addition to cash compensation, the rule would have guaranteed meals, lodging, and some ground transportation and other necessities for travelers delayed, 3 hours or more.
You called it. You called it, my friend. I do that. I mean, how many times, I wish we had like a record of how many times we've said something and then it comes right up in the thing.
We're like, we knew that. We knew that.
Oh yeah, look what I just said. All right, everybody, we've got more news to get to. Let's hit some hot notes.
Hot notes.
All right, everybody, first up from CBS, Jamie Raskin of Maryland, top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, is seeking documents from the Justice Department on its move earlier this year to end the investigation into alleged co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein. Quote, "I write to demand an explanation for why the Department of Justice has abandoned the women and girls abused by Mr. Epstein, Ms. Maxwell, and their co-conspirators, fired or cut off career prosecutors from the case, and ceased its investigation into one of the largest sex trafficking rings in history." That's what Raskin wrote in a letter to Pam Bondi, which was first obtained by CBS. In the letter, Raskin said 50 survivors provided information to prosecutors and FBI agents as part of the investigation that ultimately led to the indictments of Epstein in 2019 and Maxwell in 2020. Raskin said the information the survivors provided was precise and detailed. Quote, "They described how Mr. Epstein, Ms. Maxwell, and their co-conspirators orchestrated a sophisticated and clandestine sex trafficking conspiracy that trafficked them to at least 20 men.
Jesus.
These survivors shared with DOJ and FBI the specific identities of many of these co-conspirators, how this operation was structured and financed, and which individuals facilitated the crimes. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York was running an active investigation into Epstein and Maxwell's co-conspirators until this past January.
Wow.
Dana. So anyone who's like, why didn't Biden release the files? They were running an open and active, massive,
They couldn't release the files.
sprawling investigation into Epstein. Because, I mean, this is money. This is billions of dollars. This is thousands of survivors. And, this is massive. And that's when prosecutors were directed to shut it down and transfer the case files to the DOJ headquarters, in what Raskin said was a sudden and dramatic shift in the posture of the investigation. Since then, quote, the investigation into co-conspirators has inexplicably ceased. I can explain it, Mr. Raskin. But he's citing information provided to the Judiciary Committee by attorneys who represent the Epstein survivors. These are Epstein survivors who were being questioned in this investigation. Then in July, the DOJ issued the findings of an internal review, which said there was no client list among the evidence collected by investigators. It also, quote, did not uncover evidence that could predicate any investigation against uncharged third parties. But despite that, Trump has opened a new investigation into uncharged third parties, one against Democrats only, one that he can control, led by one of his handpicked prosecutors. Why? So he can say he doesn't have to release the Epstein files because of an open and ongoing investigation. He did the same thing in 2019 when he ordered the Manhattan DA to stop investigating the hush money payments, and then sat on that probe and did nothing so he could run out the clock on the statute of limitations. But his own incompetence foiled him. The governor of New York extended all criminal statutes of limitations because of COVID, and that allowed DA Alvin Bragg to bring the case, which resulted in a 34 felony count conviction.
I am so disgusted that they cannot see how hard he is fighting to make sure that the truth doesn't come out. I don't even understand it anymore. All right, Allison, this one's from CNN. Employees of a minimum security prison camp in Bryan, Texas, where convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell is serving time, they have been terminated. One of Maxwell's lawyers said Friday after a whistleblower this week released to Rep. Jamie Raskin alleged correspondence between Maxwell and her lawyer. I'm glad someone in there is doing the right thing. Leah Safian, a California-based attorney who has long represented Maxwell, said in a statement, and I quote, the release to the media by Congressman Raskin of Miss Maxwell's privileged client attorney email correspondence with me is as improper as it is denial of justice. Safian added that employees at the prison have been met with appropriate consequences. And I quote, they have been terminated for improper, unauthorized access to the email system used by the Federal Bureau of Prisons to allow inmates to communicate with outside world.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry. This is just baffling to me. Attorney-client privileged emails. You're in prison.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue. Sorry.
I also feel like that doesn't cover crimes, right? Anyway, okay. I can't. All right. Earlier this week, Raskin, who, as we know, is the top amazing Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, released what he said was information about Maxwell's life in the Bryan prison, including special privileges being offered to the late Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand woman. That was shared with Raskin by the whistleblower. The whistleblower also told Raskin that Maxwell, who was sentenced to 20 years in prison, is in the process of preparing to file an application of commutation. According to an email that the whistleblower shared with committee, Maxwell wrote to Safian in early September that she planned to send materials through the warden. House Judiciary Committee Democrats on Friday defended how they received and released the information and disputed that the correspondence was even privileged. And this is a quote, the House Judiciary Committee minorities letter was based on a range of documents and information shared with committee staff by a whistleblower. None of the documents shared with the committee from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, or the BOP, TrueLinks system, was subject to attorney-client privilege. None of it. This is from a House Judiciary. That's what they told CNN. The spokeswoman pointed out that individuals have to accept a disclaimer that their activity will be monitored once logged into the prison systems. She said the disclaimer makes clear that DOJ may monitor the system and that users must consent to such monitoring and have no expectation that the communications will stay private. Pertaining to attorney-client privilege specifically, the judiciary spokeswoman said the disclaimer includes this or similar language, and I quote, I understand and consent that this provision applies to electronic messages both to and from my attorney or other legal representative, and that such electronic messages will not be treated as privileged communications, and that I have alternative methods of conducting privileged legal communication. I have a way of doing that. That's really fucking clear.
It's pretty clear.
In her Friday statement, Sufyan also wrote, contrary to Rep. Raskin's assertions, Miss Maxwell has not requested a commutation or made a pardon application. She hadn't made either of those to the Trump administration as of right now. Prior to any such application, a prisoner needs to demonstrate that all possible avenues of appeal have been exhausted.
Okay, first of all, and I said this on the breakdown, Trump doesn't care if all possible avenues of appeal have been exhausted.
Neither does she.
He pardoned all the January 6th rioters before their appeals were exhausted. He pardoned 2020 election criminals before they were even charged.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. And by the way, her appeal has been exhausted. The Supreme Court denied it. The Supreme Court, what are you going to do? Apply to God? You can't, there's no... There's no, what other avenues for appeal do you think she has? Oh, they're just, I can't, I'm not a lawyer. She's a lawyer. And I'm just like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Next up from the Times, the Trump administration said Friday it would lift tariffs on foreign products, including beef, tomatoes, bananas, and coffee in an effort to alleviate some, those are called groceries, Mr. Trump.
Yeah.
In an effort to alleviate some of the price pressures consumers have faced since its global levies took effect that were put in place by Donald Trump.
Yes, otherwise known as tariffs.
The exemptions, which were made effective from Thursday, were applied to certain reciprocal tariffs that Trump announced on other countries in April. Liberation Day. They walked back one of the president's signature policies, the sweeping tariffs that he has suddenly paused, raised and lowered in recent months, and that all caused chaos for trading partners and international business. Yeah. The White House said the tariffs were no longer needed, given the substantial progress that has been made in its trade negotiations, including more than a dozen framework deals, not actual deals, concepts of deals, final trade agreements and investment agreements. The United States said this week it had agreed to deals with Switzerland, Argentina, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Uruguay that would open up those markets for U.S. business. But the steps also appear motivated by rising concerns inside and outside the White House about consumer prices. You think? Though Mr. Trump campaigned on, don't talk to me about inflation, don't talk to me about affordability, I don't want to hear it, you shut up. Trump campaigned on lowering prices of groceries. He ran on continued elevated inflation, but that is now weighing on his approval ratings, and concerns about affordability helped propel Democrats to major wins in elections across the country last week. Yeah. So tariffs are the best, but I'm going to get rid of them because it sucks and it's bad for me. Like,
basically.
Well done. Yep. Well done.
Yeah. Thanks. We knew this was going to come around. All right. This one's from the Associated Press. The Trump administration cannot fine the University of California or summarily cut the school system's federal funding over claims it allows anti-Semitism or other forms of discrimination. This is a federal judge ruled late Friday in a sharply worded decision.
Yeah, and Dana, the other forms of discrimination are purported discrimination against white people.
Oh, boy. U.S. District Judge Rita Lynn in San Francisco issued a preliminary injunction barring the administration from canceling funding to UC based on alleged discrimination without giving notice to affected faculty and conducting a hearing, among other requirements. The administration over the summer demanded the University of California, Los Angeles, pay $1.2 billion in order to restore frozen research funding and ensure eligibility for future funding after accusing the school of allowing anti-Semitism on campus. Now, on its face, this obviously sounds like a positive thing, but that's not what's fucking going on. Now, no. UCLA was the first public university to be targeted by the administration over allegations of civil rights violations. It's also frozen or paused federal funding over similar claims against private colleges, including Columbia University. In her ruling, Lynn said labor unions and other groups representing UC faculty, students, and employees had provided, and I quote, overwhelming evidence that the Trump administration was engaged in a concerted campaign to purge woke, left, and socialist viewpoints from our country's leading universities. And when I say agency officials, as well as the president and vice president, have repeatedly and publicly announced a playbook of initiating civil rights investigations of preeminent universities to justify cutting off federal funding, with the goal of bringing universities to their knees and forcing them to change their ideological tune. That was the judge. She added, it is undisputed that this precise playbook is now being executed at the University of California. At UC, which is facing a series of civil rights probes, she found the administration had engaged in coercive and retaliatory conduct in violation of the First Amendment and 10th Amendment. So the administration has demanded UCLA comply with its view on gender identity and establish a process to make sure foreign students are not admitted if they're likely to engage in anti-American, anti-Western, or anti-Semitic disruptions or harassment, among other requirements outlined in a settlement proposal made public in October. The administration has previously struck deals with Brown University for $50 million and Columbia University for $221 million.
Oh, my goodness.
Goodness indeed.
Well, I'm glad that this judge issued this ruling. I'm sure it'll be appealed and make its way up to the Supreme Court, and we'll follow that for you. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, but stick around. We'll be right back with Adam Klasfeld.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, DeleteMe makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. So a quick thank you to our sponsor, DeleteMe. With their help, I protect my privacy and the privacy of my business online. My work lives on the internet, which makes me very careful and susceptible to stuff. Every week brings another breach where hackers grab names, addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, and data brokers scoop all that information up and they sell it to the highest bidder. DeleteMe does the hard work of removing my details from those broker sites and keeping it from resurfacing. I sign up, tell them exactly which information I want deleted, and their experts take it from there. They do all the heavy lifting, and I get regular privacy reports showing what they found, where they found it, what they removed, and how many hours they saved me of having to do it myself. And it's not just a one and done either. DeleteMe keeps monitoring and wiping the data I don't want from those broker sites month after month. So if you're concerned about online privacy, give yourself some peace of mind. Let specialists handle the tedious removal so you can focus on life without the extra stress. Your future self will be so grateful. So take control of your data. Keep your private life private by signing up for DeleteMe. Now at a special discount for listeners. Get 20% off your DeleteMe plan when you go to the website joindeleteme.com/dailybeans and use promo code dailybeans at checkout. Again, the only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/dailybeans and enter code dailybeans at checkout. Joindeleteme.com/dailybeans, code dailybeans. You'll be glad you did. Welcome to Adam Klasfeld from All Rise News. A couple of things. First of all, you were at the Comey hearing this week about with Judge Curie, who was brought up from South Carolina to the Eastern District of Virginia because all the EDVA, Eastern District of Virginia judges, recused themselves on hearing the lawfulness of the appointment of Lindsay Halligan in case they have to hear cases in front of her at a later date. So they brought up Cameron Curie. She was appointed by Bill Clinton. And she is the one deciding the lawfulness of Lindsay Halligan's appointment in both the Comey case and the Letitia James case, because those have kind of been consolidated into one case, because Lindsay Halligan is the only person who signed off on the indictments and was the only person to present to the grand jury in those cases. And then after we talk a little bit about that hearing and the potential upcoming hearing, the upcoming hearing this week in the Comey case on its motions hearing. After that, we're going to discuss the revival of two state cases for the fraudulent electors scheme, one in Nevada and in Fulton County, Georgia, where Fani Willis was disqualified from prosecuting that case until and unless a new prosecutor was appointed. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So everybody, welcome. And we really appreciate you being here. And we appreciate you supporting the Breakdown and All Rise News. Adam Klasfeld, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Allison.
It's always a pleasure to see you. And thanks to the support of listeners and subscribers to All Rise News, you were able to be in the courtroom for this Comey Letitia James hearing over the lawfulness of the appointment of Lindsay Halligan. And one of the very first questions that the judge asked was about whether the defense, whether Comey's attorneys had received the declination memo from Eric Siebert, the previous prosecutor before Lindsay Halligan was installed. What was the feeling in the courtroom as far as because the reports I'm reading are that the Judge Curie was very skeptical of what the government was putting down.
Absolutely. She said at the end of the hearing, to fast forward a bit, that she would rule by Thanksgiving. And if I were James Comey, who was in the courtroom that day, I think he would be feeling very good about the upcoming holiday. The central question in my mind, now, you can never really tell based on questioning, and I'm not going to say this definitively, that this case is getting thrown out, but it seemed very, very clear that she is deeply skeptical, in the words of every news organization that covered it, about the future of this case. Certainly skeptical about the lawfulness of Lindsay Halligan's appointment. And the central question is, what is she going to do about it? This is almost certainly going to follow in the footsteps of the Alina Habba case, the Bilasali case, the Sigil Chadha case. All three of them were unlawfully appointed. But unlike in those cases, there's a very real chance that the indictment won't survive it, because here's the difference. She made clear in the middle of the hearing that Lindsay Halligan was the only person in the grand jury room. She also made clear, and just to take a step back here, before the hearing, one of the things that I was looking forward to learning is, what did she see in those grand jury records? That she had asked for the grand jury records. She didn't need to do that. None of the three other federal judges who had presided over the disqualification cases looked at the grand jury records. And we got insight as to why she asked for that, because there is a missing section at the end of it. Now, the reason I think she had the insight to ask for the grand jury materials was that Pam Bondi on Halloween, on October 31st, sent her order retroactively appointing, bending space and time to retroactively appoint Lindsay Halligan as a special attorney. And she said she made that decision, quote, based on my observations, my review of the grand jury proceedings in the cases United States v. Comey and United States v. James. And the judge pointed out, she said, as I recall it, this is a paraphrase, it became obvious to me that she could not have reviewed the grand jury proceedings because there was no court reporter present as of 4:28 p.m. And by public reports, the indictment came back well into the 7 o'clock hour. And folks might be watching thinking, well, maybe they were just deliberating for all that time. These are grand juries. They don't need unanimity. Every former federal prosecutor I speak to says these are typically minutes-long deliberations. There would be some sort of clarification on the record that we are back at such and such hour. I, Lindsay Halligan, affirm that no substantive conversations happened. There's nothing. There's just a dearth. So one of the key questions in my mind as I go ahead is, of course, what does the judge do about it? It seems like there is a much stronger chance of her throwing out the case against James Comey altogether, because this is, in particular, the grand jury transcript in that case. And so Pam Bondi's ratification that I reviewed it and it's all on the up and up can't hold water, specifically in the James Comey case. But I have to say, she didn't give a tough reception to Letitia James's attorney, Abby Lowell, either. As a matter of fact, she seemed very receptive to Abby Lowell's arguments. So the key question is, if she finds Lindsay Halligan was unlawfully appointed, and 3-0 on that point right now from Alina Habba, Bilasali, and Sigil Chadha, 3 federal judges. Every time it's been challenged, it has gone for the defendants on the appointment issue. Is the remedy issue? What does she do about it? Does she dismiss the case, and does she dismiss the case with prejudice? And this one is different than those other 3, because now we have this very weird thing that happened in the grand jury transcripts, which, she didn't get to investigate too closely. There was no exchange. Hey, why are 2 hours missing here? Because she's not investigating misconduct. She is questioning a narrow issue. Is Lindsay Halligan unlawfully appointed? And if so, what am I going to do about it? I being Judge Curry. And one final point on this kind of topic. I'm going to be back in Alexandria, Virginia next week for a hearing in the James Comey case. We'll see if the magistrate judge, who also requested the grand jury records, who does have it would be well within his rights to look into what happened. And we'll see if we get some clarification here. Lindsay Halligan was in court this past week. She could have passed a note to her assistant U.S. attorney, Henry Whitaker, and said, innocent explanation here, make it known to the judge. That didn't happen. We didn't get any explanation for that missing 2 hours. We'll see if the magistrate judge next week holds the government's feet to the fire on that issue, or whether it'll be a moot point because the case will be dismissed.
Yeah, and I believe that the government Department of Justice argued against the magistrate Judge Fitzpatrick getting all of the grand jury material, and Judge Nachmanoff ruled that the judge has all of the right in the world to request that grand jury material. But with Judge Curry, that 2 hours and 20 minutes that's missing, 4:27 is when they stopped transcribing. 6:47, according to a Comey filing, is when the indictment was returned. And that is a huge problem. And I love that that the judge is like, look, if you want me to assess Pam Bondi's DeLorean time machine appointment of Lindsay Halligan, I need to verify that Pam Bondi did review all of the grand jury materials and made that determination based on her review of the grand jury materials. And from what you're telling me, Department of Justice, she can't have reviewed them all because there's 2.5 hours missing.
Right.
And I am interested to know, me, Allison Gill, I want to know, when was that no bill returned?
Right.
And what point in the deliberations was the court reporter dismissed? Was it a no bill and then they dismissed the court reporter to go home for the day, and then Lindsay Halligan brought the grand jury back in and got the true bill?
Right.
And if we don't have any way to determine, first of all, you can't do any of that off the record without a court reporter there. But if we don't have any way to determine that, I feel like, the tie goes to the runner in this case. It goes to Comey and, in this particular case, Jim Comey, to say, look, I can't prove. It's up to you to prove to me that you appointed retroactively Lindsay Halligan based on your review of the grand jury material. And if that chunk is missing, first of all, why is it missing? I would like to see the court reporter brought in and asked about what point during the deliberations were they asked to leave. Was it after the FBI guy testified and before Lindsay Halligan came back to deliver the end of the case? Was it after a no bill was returned, but before she went back to get a true bill? All of those things I'm very interested in. And maybe Judge Fitzpatrick will have time to get to the bottom of it before Judge Curry dismisses the whole shebang based on the unlawful appointment, which is why I'm like, maybe that's why she's waiting until Thanksgiving
Right.
to get this. Because we're all a little bit curious about what Lindsay Halligan said to that grand jury. Did she tell them, I will keep you here until you give me a true bill? Did she tell them, I won't feed you until you give me a true bill? Did she give them misinformation? Did she fail to show them the Inspector General report that kind of exonerates the whole situation here? Did she fail to discuss Braunston litigation and literal truth factors? Did she? She's never done this before.
Yeah.
And so it's very important, I think, for both of these judges to review that grand jury material. And the fact that after asking for it 3 times, Judge Curry still hasn't been able to get the full grand jury transcripts, or Fitzpatrick, because they asked for it and they just gave the FBI guy's testimony. And Judge Fitzpatrick was like, how about the rest? And, then they hand over this thing with a chunk of time missing. So it's all very, very sus, as they say.
And to your point, Allison, I mean, one of the things that the magistrate is going to suss out is whether to give what exists of the grand jury material to Comey's defense. And that caused a lot of the appeal that you had mentioned, which Judge Nachmanoff brought back down, saying that's absolutely within the discretion of the judge if it's warranted. So we'll see if that comes to a head this Wednesday. But this week was the first revelation of this missing gap in this very critical period of time. I mean, folks need to remember the 2 counts that came in by a razor-thin margin. It's actually quite stunning that they no-billed any count, let alone what was going to be the top count of this indictment at all, and that the 2 counts that barely made it over the finish line had it with the authority of someone presenting herself with the weight and majesty of the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, a title that she might not have. And that was a point that was made during the arguments that Comey's lawyer, McDowell, he made the point to say, if she introduced herself as a special attorney, would that have defeated that margin? The fact that we don't know what she said to them in that missing 2.5 hours before they deliberated. What happened? It's entirely a black box. We did not get any kind of fact gathering about it because the focus of Judge Curry was very narrow. It was on the topic of disqualification, and her interest in it was, you, Pam Bondi, told me you reviewed it. You made sure it was on the up and up. You could not possibly have done that. It became obvious to me because you don't know what happened in these final hours. We'll see if there's some fact gathering next week on this. How did this happen? Are we going to find out more information, have some sort of discovery from the vantage point of the court reporter? I'm going to be very interested to find out what happens on that front.
Yeah. And then we also had a kind of a fun moment when the 3 statutes that Pam Bondi purportedly retroactively used to appoint Lindsay Halligan, a special attorney, were the 3 statutes that allowed Merrick Garland to appoint Jack Smith as a special prosecutor against Donald Trump, and actually got the DOJ to admit in court that they disagreed with Eileen Cannon's dismissal of Jack Smith as his lawful appointment of the
it was incredible. Yeah, it was incredible the way that Judge Curry entered the shiv on that question. I mean, the question, I believe verbatim, because it was just such a stunning moment, it's in my memory, was United States v. Trump wrongly decided? And, putting the assistant U.S. attorney, Henry Whitaker, on the spot. Are you a representative of the Trump DOJ going to tell me right now that Judge Cannon was wrong, that Jack Smith, in fact, was perfectly appointed under our laws and traditions and practices as a special prosecutor, and therefore the case should not have been dismissed? And it was a really long, circuitous journey for Whitaker to actually say that the DOJ comes on the other side of that question. His original dancing around of the question was, well, we don't think it's controlling, Your Honor. He was we brought a great guest into the chat right here. But, I will say that he originally tried to dance around that question, and he said it's not controlling. That's the Southern District of Florida. And this, of course, is the Eastern District of Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we disagree with that because it's devastating to our case. So, yeah. And, when she asked, did they decide it wrong under the laws of our country? The laws that she's talking about are the same laws that Pam Bondi is using to retroactively appoint Lindsay Halligan. So,
right.
Very fun, very fascinating. Let's talk just briefly about, and of course, Abby Lowell saying, her being in that grand jury room, Lindsay Halligan, is no different than Elon Musk or Steve Bannon returning an indictment, only to have the Attorney General bless them as U.S. attorneys later.
Right.
Let's talk about the revival of a couple of state cases. Our Department of Justice Whack-a-Dagpa is what I call him. He's the Weaponization Czar Associate Deputy Attorney General Pardon Attorney, a man named Mr. Ed Martin. He released a list of a huge pardon for anybody who participated in the fraudulent elector scheme trying to overturn the 2020 election. Granted, that was a performative pardon because none of them had ever been charged federally, and you can't pardon state crimes. But I think that was more of a bat signal to future election criminals saying, no MAGA left behind. We got your back. If you break the law trying to steal the election for Donald Trump, we got you. I think that's what that was about. But keep talking about the state cases. Just within the last couple of days, day or two, last 24 hours, I think, the Nevada state case, which was a case that was only brought over the 6 fraudulent electors in Nevada. It didn't include any of the architects like the Fulton County case did. It didn't include Sidney Powell or John Eastman or Boris Epstein or any of those folks. It was just the 6 electors. Had been stuck. It had been frozen because there was a venue challenge. The Republicans and the electors were saying it shouldn't have been brought in Clark County, but the Nevada Supreme Court said, yes, it was brought properly in the right county. So now that case is back from the dead. And then we have Fulton County, which Fani Willis was disqualified from prosecuting. And then it's up to a Georgia state group of lawyers, the something Professional Prosecutors Council or something, who is headed up by a guy named Scandalakis, which is a fun name to say. And I know that name because, and many of you watching and you, Adam, know this name because early on in the Fulton County prosecution, one of the fraudulent electors, also a state senator named Burt Jones, was being prosecuted. And they said that Fani Willis was disqualified from prosecuting him because she hosted a political fundraiser for his Senate opponent. And so she was disqualified from the case. And in Georgia, my understanding is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this prosecutor's council, then tries to assign it to a different prosecutor, maybe somebody in Cobb County or Coffee County or somebody else. And what happened with the Burt Jones case is at the very last minute, at the deadline to appoint someone on the Burt Jones case, Scandalakis said, I can't find anybody. I'll do it myself. And then he quickly tanked the case. He submarined it. And so that's what has happened here. He hasn't submarined it yet, but Scandalakis waited to the last possible moment when he had to assign a prosecutor to take over for Fani Willis on the fraudulent electors 2020 case. And that's one includes Rudy Giuliani and all the rest. But Scandalakis, I had even, I think, tweeted or blue skied you and Anna Bowers, like, I wonder if Scandalakis is going to take it for himself again. And bam, we learned today he has. So what are your thoughts on the revival of these two cases?
I'm going to offer the glass half full perspective on this because we're talking about 2 revived cases for now. We'll see what happens with the case in Georgia. There's also, I'm going to throw into the mix, a federal civil case that the KKK Act case against the Trump campaign, against Trump himself, and against a bunch of Trump Confederates in Washington, D.C. And right now, the significance, the fact that this is now going to be playing out in at least 3 jurisdictions, and then perhaps maybe 2, we'll see how many of them ultimately survive, is we're now at a moment where you have pretty much most of Senate GOP and House GOP leadership trying to create an alternate history of the January 6th attack on the Capitol, where the misconduct is mostly coming from authorized subpoenas of the people who Trump and Giuliani called in order to subvert a free and fair election. There's an alternate history being written. And I think that the importance and significance of this is that the true history is going to be playing out in courtrooms across the country. In the civil case against Trump, in the case about the false electors. I think there's probably not a very complete understanding about, for example, why Trump's top count in his election subversion case was conspiracy to defraud the United States, because fraud was central to the attack on the election, to the attempt to overturn a free and fair election. People were submitting fraudulent documents into courts, into legislatures with sworn statements. That's why the Nevada case, even though it wasn't a key swing state, even though it doesn't involve the central list of characters, I bet that the discovery will. I bet that the evidence will. And it keeps the counter-programming to the attempt to rewrite the history of January 6th, the attempt to rewrite the history of the 2020 election. It puts the actual history front and center again in 3 different locations. So we'll see what Skandalakis does with the Georgia case. And we do have that history with Burt Jones, that case ultimately getting spiked in Georgia. But for the time being, we have the revival of that case in Nevada and the case in Washington, D.C., the civil case with potentially broader discovery. It won't be confined to prosecutors trying to fit within the narrow confines of this. That other evidence could come out, because at the heart of that case is it survived dismissal on the grounds that it passed the Brandenburg test of incitement. We can get to the question of incitement. So all of these cases are very significant to me, which is why I take the glass half full. There's an active effort to rewrite this history, and the courts are providing the counter narrative with the actual facts.
Yeah, and there's a congressman named Levine who is actually working on a plan to develop curriculum for states, for schools, on teaching the proper truth and history of what happened on January 26th. I hope we see that state by state. There's also an active lawsuit filed by Harry Dunn to get the January 6th plaque hung in the halls of Congress. It was a law that was passed and signed in 2023 or in 2022, and it was supposed to be hung in 2023 by law. And Mike Johnson has refused to hang that plaque, so they're suing, saying, "Hey, either hang the plaque or tell us why you're not hanging the plaque." Like,
right.
Let's fish or cut bait. So a lot going on with that. And I also just wanted to bring up the talking about Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss for a moment. Their civil case will not be impacted by these Ed Martin, Donald Trump pardons, because you can't pardon a civil action, as you were alluding to.
Yeah. So or a state action. So
yeah. Yep. So, as always, All Rise News will be watching all of these cases very closely. Adam, you're traveling to the Eastern District of Virginia to sit in on this motions hearing for Comey. It's supposed to be November 19th this week?
Yes, it's Wednesday. So
yeah, he's also trying to move up his December 9th hearing to December 3rd, 4th, or 5th because they have a trial conflict with Comey's attorneys. But man, they aren't joking when they call the Eastern District of Virginia the rocket docket, because they are moving incredibly quickly, and I'm glad for that.
It's funny. For the first time, it was when I saw the Comey hearing this past week. It was my first time in the Eastern District of Virginia, and the reputation of the rocket docket. You walk into the courthouse and there's a sign with, of course, the famous expression, "Justice delayed is justice denied." And there's this sort of mural / statue rendering of the tortoise and the hare. And you have these rabbits jumping from one position of the mural to the other, and a turtle neck out. And it's like, oh, we are walking into the rocket docket, because everyone on this chat knows how long Trump's criminal cases were progressing. If Comey's case survives, I will be there again in January. That's how quickly this is processing. It's going to happen very quickly in the James case, if that makes it to trial. So yes, it is a rocket docket, and it bears the signature of the rocket docket, even in the facade of the courthouse.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, my friend, for coming on and explaining some of these things to us, talking about the nuances, talking about giving us a little courtroom color when it comes to how Judge Curie was feeling and expressing her skepticism with this particular Department of Justice, which is not a surprise given all of the judges who have commented in the last 8 or 9 months that the presumption of regularity has been decimated by this particular Department of Justice. I am holding out hope that they don't outrightly dismiss these cases until we find out more about the malfeasance in the grand jury. But we'll see what happens. And you can follow All Rise News for all of it. And if you do have the means and you're able to subscribe and support Adam Klasfeld's work, please do. It helps him pay for his travel. He doesn't have a corporate overlord telling him what he can and can't say, and also not helping him pay for his travel. So any financial support you could give him by subscribing as a paid subscriber to his Substack at All Rise News goes a really long way to helping out and getting the information to you in the best and most honest manner, most transparent manner. So thank you, my friend, for spending a little bit of time with us today.
Thank you, my friend. Always great chatting, Allison.
All right, everybody, stick around. We'll be right back with the good news. Hey, everybody, I want to talk about my favorite subscription service. Even though I don't drink these days, I like to play host for friends and family. And whether it's dinner or casual party or, holidays, Naked Wines makes it easy to impress my guests. Bottles from Naked Wines always kick off great conversations. They're delicious. They're amazing. And my friends love discovering something new in their incredible lineup of independent winemakers. Naked Wines is a service that directly connects you to the world's finest independent winemakers so you can get award-winning wine delivered straight to your door. So let's thank Naked Wines for supporting the show. Go to nakedwines.com/dailybeans and use promo code dailybeans for the code and the password, and you'll get their incredible deal of 6 bottles for just $39.99. For our latest small party, I brought out a Mike Patterson barrel fermented Sauvy B. It's a 2022 grape. It's from Naked Wines. It was incredible. My guests loved it. They called the wine fresh and smooth. It was creamy. It played beautifully with the charcuterie board I put out. And watching people enjoy themselves is my favorite part of hosting. Those are the experiences that I love. That's a gift to me. And Naked Wines keeps it effortless by putting standout bottles within easy reach. I've never had a bad bottle from these folks. It's just incredible. And they've supported over 90 independent winemakers for more than 15 years at Naked Wines. No commitments, no gimmicks, just quality bottles crafted by real people who love what they do. So now's the time to join the Naked Wines community. Head to nakedwines.com/dailybeans, click enter voucher, put in my code dailybeans for both the code and the password, and you'll get 6 bottles of wine for just $39.99 with shipping included. That's $100 off your first 6 bottles at nakedwines.com/dailybeans and use code and password dailybeans for 6 bottles of wine for $39.99. You will be glad you did. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's time for the good news.
Who likes good news, everyone? Then good news, everyone.
Good news, good news. And if you have any good news, confessions, corrections, especially pronunciation corrections for us, please send them to us. If you have good trouble ideas, please send that to us as well. If you have a shout out, maybe to a loved one, a spouse, yourself, we love self shout outs, a government program that's helped you or a loved one, we would love to get that on the record for posterity. If you have a shout out to a small business in your area or a nonprofit, maybe a food bank that could use a boost, let us know. And all you got to do to get your good news read on the air is pay your pod pet tariff, which means attach a photo of your pet. And if you don't have a pet, you can send us an adoptable pet in your area. If you don't have that, just grab a random photo of any animal off the internet. That will work. Send it to us. We love baby animals. You can also use family photos, maybe what you guys dressed up for for Halloween. We would love to see that. Any holiday photos or awkward family photos are always fun. I think I have one where I'm like super gothed out and my parents are all dressed nice and it's kind of funny.
That's awesome.
And of course, if you don't have any of those, you can maybe just send us a picture of what you're making or creating, maybe your garden or a sunset. The aurora was pretty prominent over the weekend.
Incredible.
If you've got any of those photos, we'd love to see all of it. Send it to us, dailybeanspod.com, and click on contact. All right, first up from Claire, pronouns she and her. I live in southeastern North Carolina, not far from Camp Lejeune. A couple of us organized a neighborhood food drive to donate to a local food pantry. We did it on short notice, and we had a great response. I believe even though all the crazy shit is going on, neighbors and communities can come together to help the less fortunate. Next thing we're trying to figure out is an angel tree in the neighborhood. I love your show and the way you break things down and get emotional. The fight is real, but with voices like yours, we will come out on top. And I've included this picture of one of my dogs for you to guess the breed. All right. Skipper Key, German Shepherd, Chow Chow, and Samoyed. What do you say?
A little bit of wolf.
Little wolf?
Yes.
All right,
There's a
let's
wolf
see what
in
we
there.
got. Who knows? Skipper Key. Oh my God, I got it right.
What the hell? What's a skipper key?
It's that dog.
Doctor, it hurts when I do this. We'll stop doing that.
What's red and smells like blue paint? Red paint. That
Oh,
I
super
can't
cute.
believe
Well
it.
done.
And this is a redacted one. I didn't see what was under the Skipper Key. Look at me go.
That's
But we
impressive.
got all the rest wrong. So anyway,
Nice.
thank you so much for that, Claire.
All right. This is from Katie, pronounced she and her. Greetings to our Leguminati leaders and, of course, to all of my fellow listeners who make up the best bean salad. I'm a longtime listener, but a first-time good news sharer. I was so fortunate to make connections with other Beanie Babies during the first DC Gala. Not my best pick, but God, those were times full of excited anticipation. I cried like a baby on the first happy hour after the election, and the Beans community and hosts were so amazing. I felt comfortable sharing my concerns as an ally and a mom to 3 girls, 2 of whom belong to the LGBTQ plus community during a second Trump presidency. You reminded me that those of us who care for others, irrespective of similarities or differences, are everywhere, and I definitely felt wrapped in this community's love. Now for some good news. I just got back from my visiting our family's farm in southern West Virginia for Veterans Day weekend and noticed something that bodes well for us. While my extended family is fairly woke in the area, last July I clocked at least 20 Trump signs from the state line to the farm. Well, I was blown away last weekend. There were zero Trump signs on that stretch. 0. This is a very impoverished area where the majority of residents are either farmers or blue-collar workers who rely on the support of government programs. If the change in signage is any indicator of major shift away from this idolatry, that was a new one for me, idolatry of this Mango Mussolini, I am here for it. Attached are pictures of my woke babies who have been protesting with me for their entire lives. My 16-year-old, not pictured, she said wanted to work for Mamdani when she grows up. These girls, 16, 13, and 10, have such a mature understanding of the difference between equity and equality and are active anti-racist without any indoctrination, unless you consider parental modeling of human decency as indoctrination. I sometimes find myself feeling like I'm a crappy, overwhelmed mom, and then they open their mouths and I feel vindicated. They are all Beans listeners. Hi, kids.
Hey, gang. What's up?
And all sing along with the theme in the section intros. For years, they've been begging me to send something in for good news, so I'm happy to finally oblige. For my pod pet tax, see Dottie, our pandemic pup, who is everything good in this world. She cuddles, sings, and has no idea that she's not a lap dog. She's easygoing with all the dogs we sit or foster and cedes power to her best friend, a miniature poodle Bichon. Can you guess her breed? Well, first of all, this is a great picture of you at the DC Gala with all of the big hitters.
Look at that. It's Pete Strzok, Andy McCabe, Semper Rye, Dan, and Clinton Kirshner. Amazing.
Fantastic.
Look at these
And your
kids.
girls.
That's so cool.
And I think that's probably the cutest pit bull if I had to guess.
Yeah, a little pity.
Yeah. She says, pity, but we were floored that she was 100% that bitch, which is, I guess no greyhounds watch this time. I love that this joke is carrying over. Love you guys. And I'm formally requesting a North Carolina Beans visit in the run up to the midterms. I think there's a good chance Allison and I will do some live dates next year. So just keep an eye on everything.
Keep an eye. No greyhounds watched this time. If you're new to the Beans, we've got a few thousand new listeners this week.
Nice.
The joke about so we try to guess what breeds are in people's shelter pups, and one of them had a greyhound in there, and it didn't look anything like a greyhound. And Dana said, maybe the greyhound watched.
And then we laughed and laughed and laughed.
We laughed and laughed. Thank you so much for that submission. What great photos. Next up from Debbie, pronouns she and her. Hello, friends. The giant chair pictured in the photos sits in front of a local church in my neighborhood. It's repainted every few weeks with cheerful, positive drawings and messages. It took me a minute to interpret its latest look, seen today on a morning walk. First time ever I've seen the chair wearing anything even close to a political message, and I've lived in the area even longer than the chair. With gratitude for your work, which keeps me strong, the thread by which my sanity hangs. Debbie, thank you, but I don't see the picture made it through. So maybe
I don't see it either.
Or we'll ask our producers what happened to it. Now I want to know what the chair says.
I know, seriously.
Thanks for sending that in. And then I'll take this one. Stephen from Adelaide, pronouns he and him. As a listener in Australia, I often hear about all the events and goings-on that happen around the U.S., and I wish I could go once in a while. But alas, I'm never in the area, being usually around 10,000 miles and 27 hours of traveling away.
It's a hindrance.
Yeah. It blew my mind when I learned that it takes 27 hours to fly to Australia.
Yeah.
So imagine my joy when I listened to last week's Fugelsang Friday on the Beans and realized I was actually going to be in the D.C. area this week. And as it turned out, just a literal mile away from the Separation of Church and Hate show venue in D.C. I couldn't not go. I was able to go and not only hear John do a set, but also see Glenn Kirshner interview John about the book as well. It was a really great evening, and I can thoroughly recommend the pay-per-view this Saturday. I met some lovely people while at the show. Alex, who invited all alone me to the last seat on a table, and Michelle from the NIH. Oh, cool. All Leguminati, of course. I got my copy of the book signed by John and a photo after the show. He has enough great hair for the both of us.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Oh, that's a great picture. Stephen, thank you so much. And I'm glad you got to the U.S. I'm glad you were in the area, my friend.
All right. This next one is from Lisa, pronouns she and her. Me and my girlfriend Mel were at Dana's 9 p.m. show on Friday night. Had a blast. Laughed so hard. We took the opportunity to flip the bird to Cheeto's building the next day and made sure to kiss each other as gay as possible. Enjoy our attached picture. This is fucking great. Thank you for coming to the show. The 9 p.m. was something special. And yeah. I was in a place where I could see, first of all, the weather in Chicago was incredible. And so the skies were clear and you could see the entire, it's one of the most beautiful, in my opinion, skylines in the country, except that fucking name on that building. And it's just it's so annoying. It's so annoying.
It's obtrusive and it's just violative, just like fuck off.
Yeah, it's a good
forever.
Word.
Ugh. Anyway, one day, those TRUMP
will be
yes,
it will.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for all your good news. Thanks to Adam Klasfeld for talking to us about the upcoming week. It's going to be a very busy week in the courts, and All Rise News is going to be all over it. So I'm looking forward to that. And do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, not today. Happy to be back with you.
Any last words?
Not today, my friend. Not today.
You are going to sleep like a baby tonight.
I sure hope so. I
am excited for you about how hard you're going to sleep tonight. All right, everybody. We'll be back in your ears tomorrow. Until then, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health, and take care of your family. I've been AG.
I've been DG.
And them's the Beans.
The Daily Beans is written and executive produced by Allison Gill with additional research and reporting by Dana Goldberg. Sound design and editing is by Desiree McFarlane, with art and web design by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios. Music for The Daily Beans is written and performed by They Might Be Giants, and the show is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, please visit mswmedia.com.
MSW Media.